Hi, I'm Frankie. Welcome to Business on the Rise. This podcast is your playbook to learn everything you need to know to launch, grow, and fund your brand. Welcome back to Business on the Rise. Today, I'm talking to Deborah Henry, founder of Refugee organization, a social enterprise that champions the lives of the refugees here in Malaysia. Deborah is a special breed, and this particular episode is a really special one to me. It really choked my heart. Every word that came out of her mouth meant something. Deborah talks about impact-driven projects and programs, something that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in business. We talk about profits. We talk about serving ourselves, our business partners, and our investors. She didn't. Deborah Henry is in the house.
I knew you were going to give me some interesting introduction.
Welcome. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is a different environment that you and I are.
We've been in many environments together.
Correct.
You're like older sister from high school.
Yes. For those of you listening, Deborah is obviously not a name that's unfamiliar, but Deborah and I went to school together. I was her senior, much more senior. And then we did cheerleading together.
I know. We were cheerleaders.
Together. And then we met probably we bumped into each other 8 years ago, and then we hooked up.
Mm-hmm. And we've been together since.
I know. Okay, coming back to the serious stuff. Deborah, who are you?
Oh gosh.
Yes.
It's a big question.
Tell us a little bit more about, we'll talk about some of the work that you do, and we'll talk about the advocacy stuff that you do, predominantly on refugee rights, specifically on education. But just to give in context how you started Refugee organization, what was some of the significant moments that have led you to do the work that you do today? And maybe tell us a little bit more about, once upon a time you were Miss Universe and you used that platform for the good. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really, really like you and I admire you, because you are a great influencer and you use that influencer platform for the good. So tell us a little bit more in context.
Well, thank you. It's not, it's when you think about it, it's not one thing that happened or some big detailed plan that I had. I think back to when I was in my teens and finishing school. I used to, the memory that always comes back to me is I used to sit in the afternoons with my granddad, and while he was drinking his Guinness Stout, I would ask him all kinds of questions about what happened during World War II when you lived through it. And did you, this was a time when news took hours, if not days, to travel, right?
Yeah.
Not like today, milliseconds. How did you find things out? How did you know what was happening? Was there no way the world could save people? Very, perhaps naive questions. And it was like that 14, 15, 16, around that age, I just was very interested about in issues of injustice. It bothered me why we live in a world that has so much abundance, but people go without the most basic things. How we can send humans into space, but we can't put food on someone's table or ensure they have access to clean water and electricity. These insane disparities just didn't make sense to me. And I guess when I was about 17, I had to think about university. What am I going to study? Political science and economics came to mind. That's where I landed, right? So I guess that was a point when I said to myself, okay, I'm interested in this area. I think if I'm going to go to university and I have to study something, this would be it. But then I managed to convince my parents to allow me to defer university for a year, take a gap year. something a lot of Asian families don't encourage or allow their kids to do. And I moved to London to model. I was scouted on the streets of Bangsa at the age of 15. I remember
As you do, people.
I know, it's like one of those stories. And and the agent asked me, do you want to be a model? And I wasn't a tomboy, but I was athletic. I wore shorts. I was just super physical and fit. And I said to the agency, no, not really. But I went ahead with it. And I ended up going down that path. I enjoyed the freedom. I enjoyed earning money. And I moved to London, lived with family. And for about 8 months, I would trudge the streets of London, going for castings and, trying to break it into the industry there.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to Malaysia the end of that year, and I went to university in Australia the following year. So I think the moment when I came out of university, that experience I had, the lectures I had, the conversations in our lecture halls, tutorials really solidified that I wanted this to be a part of my life. So I came out of university with a conviction that some aspects of me would involve development work or, human rights work or something like that. I wasn't quite sure what that was going to look like. And I moved back to Malaysia. I was still modeling throughout university. I moved back to Malaysia, wasn't quite happy being a model anymore. It was not fulfilling. And because you very much as a model do feel a bit like a clothes hanger. It's a face, it's a body. You do what they tell you to do, right? And I wanted something different. So as you do, you end up in a beauty pageant. And also very reluctantly, I did not want to be a beauty queen.
Yeah.
It was an opportunity presented to me. I said yes. I have a knack of putting myself or pushing myself into situations that I'm not 100% sure about, but I sort of say, let's go, let's do it. If it's meant to be, it's going to happen. If it crosses my boundaries, my lines, then I'll take a step back, right? But I risk things and I put myself forward. Did that, won Miss Malaysia World in 2007. And that offered me an amazing platform. So it was very intentional, not just to be a beauty queen for the sake of it. It was not a dream I had since I was 5 years old to stand on the stage with a crown on my head. But it was an amazing platform that I got that put a mic in my face. It gave me attention. And now it was up to me.
What are you going to do with that attention?
Right. And I had a bit of a plan.
Yes. Did you have a light bulb moment throughout the journey of Miss Malaysia and then going into Miss Universe? Did you think, right, there is this light that is upon me and I want to do something with this light, something that is beyond me? Did you have that moment?
Not as a specific moment, but it was just so I did the two pageants, right? In 2007, it was Miss World Malaysia. And in 2011, I did Miss Universe. So two separate pageants, a few years apart. And when I did Miss World in 2007, I hadn't started Fuji as an organization. I was volunteering with organizations. I was putting myself out there, experiencing things, understanding what's going on in Malaysia, where the needs are or what would interest me, right? Because it's not, it's not always for you, the cause, as good as it is. So that was one phase. And then it was actually through Miss World that I reached out to UNHCR Malaysia, the refugee agency. I met them. I asked them for an article because I needed to create my beauty with a purpose for Miss World. And it was through that I got in contact with the lady there. And then she reached out to me a year or so later saying, hey, we'd like you to host a documentary for us featuring 4 refugee families living in Malaysia. We want you to help tell their story. And what I remember distinctly is, I think it was early 2008. I visited these 4 families to record, but one family was a Somali family. I remember distinctly leaving their home. It was a low-cost apartment in KL, walking through the corridors, kind of a dark corridor out of their home to the lift and going, after interviewing them, and I said to myself, I cannot just give them a little bit of a donation and walk away from this family because these four kids without an education, without anyone here in Malaysia who can actually go to actually look after them and to go, these kids matter. They were invisible in our country, less than 20 minutes from our Twin Towers. They're gonna, like, what life are they gonna have? A life without education is, in this world today, you're setting these kids up for failure. And so that was, I think, the moment where I went, this is for me.
Right.
Because until then, I did not know what I wanted to do. And that's a question I face with a lot of people. They go, how do I know what cause I want to support or what to start or where the need is? And that was it. I put myself out there. I tried many things. And at that moment, it was, I can do something here in this situation. And I started with my university friend giving the family math and English tuition every Saturday for about 6 months. And the following year, in 2009, we set up a school. Very informal. We didn't have a big plan. We had a little bit of money that I'd fundraised, and it was a very sort of like kind of chinchai, like whatever. We kind of just put it together, and we started in an apartment. With about 60 students. So
providing tuition,
providing pretty much some form of a education to primary age kids at that point.
So how did you transition from an apartment, 60 students, tuition, or more like tuition, to starting a school?
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
So it's interesting. Now the organization is 16 years old. It's been more than a decade.
That's crazy.
Right?
Well done.
And when I started it with the idea, the mindset that I hope this has to close soon because it was meant to be temporary.
Yeah.
It was never meant to be, I want to start a big school. It was never that. It was a temporary measure. And even the language we used, when we talked about it, we would say a basic education for refugees. It was temporary. It was basic. It was for a short period of time till they got resettled. But about 5 years in, you realize it's not temporary.
Yeah.
It's not basic.
They're not resettled.
They're not getting resettled.
Yeah.
It's 5 years. Some families have been in Malaysia for almost 10 years. That's a decade of your life.
Yeah.
Nothing about this education, nothing about the services we provide can be whatever, just, to like just fill up your time. We had to be 100% committed. And we had to also, so we changed our narrative, we changed our plans, we changed our vision, how we did it, how we wanted to achieve this vision. But we also had to then work with the community, the beneficiaries, who were not only our students, but our staff, but the people who designed some of the programs with us, and kind of ensure that we were all on the same page together. Because if your children, your students, have a mindset of, what's the point? I don't even know where I'm going to be tomorrow. There is no hope.
Yeah.
Who knows? If that's where they're coming from, and also you can have a victim mindset where it's a bit of a poor me, my life sucks, everything is hard, I'm not legal, no one likes me, no one wants me, nothing's going to work. So it's a lot easier said than done. And I quite frankly, even sitting here today, I don't think we've quite, it's a constant journey. But it was that massive. So that was a big changing part, right? Where what we do today needs to matter. The students need to live today like it's everything. They need to give today everything and not be living for like a possible better tomorrow. So so that was a big shift in our mindset in what our actual goal is. How do we define a successful student that graduates from Fuji School? What is that successful student? What does that person look like, right? And defining that, because ultimately I want these kids to be able to not only survive, but to thrive in this world, not just in Malaysia, not if they go back to their home country, but anywhere. If they get resettled to the US, to Canada, to Australia, New Zealand, they can thrive. And what does a person have to have inside of them, in their heads and their hearts, to be able to thrive?
So by this time, you're deep into the organization. So you set up a company. You had to set up a company, right? And then you had to move. So you moved into the school, which is in Gombak.
Yep.
You moved straight away. How did you get everybody to move? Because I understand that the refugee community that you work with are in specific areas. So transportation could be an issue for the children to get from A to the school.
Yeah.
Right? What were the buy-ins like from the school and the community when you decided to, we need to set up a proper school.
Yeah.
As you said, this is not just the basic education anymore. This is providing a great education so that these children can also thrive after.
Yeah, just like any other kid, right?
Correct. So you didn't treat them like they are refugees. You treated them like they're any other children.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that they don't have the kind of opportunity and access, right? So that's where we come in to play that role. But I guess one of the key foundations here, and this I think applies not just in the nonprofit world, but pretty much any situation, is building trust. And especially in this space where the dynamics, I'm coming in, I have power, I have money, I'm helping, this like, I'm here to save you kind of mentality. And then a people...
Which is self-serving sometimes.
It can be. And then a people who are the victims, who are, have less power, often are powerless, voiceless. They don't even have legal status in this country. Easily exploited. So there's a whole power dynamic there, right? And am I coming in here to give them food and stuff and take a nice fancy photo? What am I doing? And they want to know what I'm doing. Do I even know what I'm doing? So building trust is so important. That doesn't happen overnight. That takes time. And
how much time did that
really
take?
Depends. I mean, for us, it was years of them going, okay, they're here, they're educating our kids. Okay, they're still here. When
you say they, the parents,
they referring to us as in the school. So the teachers, the owner, in my case, the principal, the donors who come in, the volunteers.
Yeah.
Like my kid still has a school to go to tomorrow.
Yeah.
When I have financial meaning the parents have financial issues, they would come to us. So they didn't just come to us for school. They came to us for bills. They came to us for medical care. They came to us for many different types of issues and challenges that they face. So even though we primarily focus on education, we also in a way serve the needs of the community.
And not just the children.
Yes. Because I like this quote from World Vision. In order to help a child, you have to help their family. And in order to help the family, you have to help the community. So it's if you imagine a small, bigger and a bigger circle, you can't just help a kid, because often what's going on in that kid's life is something related to back home. Right? So it's this idea of development, it has to be all encompassing in how you approach it. So for us, we were always in the Gombak area. We were very small. We moved literally not even probably a kilometer away into a shop lot.
Right.
So we're still a shop lot school for what it's worth. I think efforts of constantly having communication with the community, transparency, showing them what we do, taking them along the journey, encouraging them, and then when they see the impact in their child, they get it. When they see their kid, my kid speaks English now, that my child can help me translate when I go to the hospital or when I go to the shops. There's a benefit. So it's understanding the psyche of the community as well, and what good looks like to them, right? But obviously in our mind, we have our big picture. We have that very clear idea of where we're taking the students. But I think importantly, as a school, schools play such an important role, right? Not just in academics, but in also building a better society. The nature of what is that child that you're trying to develop that enters into the real world? How are they? Who are they? And also, opportunities in Malaysia, schools play such a big role for assimilation and integration and cross-cultural understanding. So even though refugees live amongst us, we don't know each other. And that's why there are challenges with, who are you? What are you here for? What culture do you have? And there's a fear that comes. But we try to break down the fear and build friendship, build familiarity, because you don't fear what you know. You fear what you don't know. So the school plays an important role of bringing different communities together and helping them understand each other, which is very important. So it's been a struggle from a school of 60 kids in 2008, 2009 to today. We've educated over probably 700 children. We currently have 200 kids in the school from over 10 nationalities. We've had probably thousands of community that we've impacted through various programs and interactions over the past decade. And we keep going and we keep improving, and we're constantly trying to learn from each other, learn from the community, learn from the kids. Definitely always, and even for me, always checking myself. We're not coming in here like we know best.
Yes.
We have the answers. We have the solutions. It has to be participatory. And it's not to say anyone's perfect. There are challenges. There is friction. But how do you overcome it? But it's rolling your sleeves up. It's being there. It's committing to it. It's through the hard stuff. COVID happened. We had no funding. We were living dollar to dollar, month to month. I literally, for the first time ever, went on my Instagram and pretty much like begged people to give us money to help us stay open.
Yeah.
So it's in a way doing what you have to do in order to survive. And I think for me personally, because I see the kids are there in front of me, the students are there, the parents are there. I know what their reality is like, and I know that without this, there is no other alternative. This has to work. My only difference, the change in my mindset today in the past, say, 7 years is that it's not basic. It's not like, whatever lah, just give something, some 50% and this will do. I don't want to do that. If I want to do it, I want to make it great. I want to give these kids the best that we can afford to give them, and I want to see the results and the impact. And that comes when they leave school, when they start working, building their own lives and families, that you see the impact that the education you've had on their lives. And the tagline we use at Fuji School is educate a child, impact generations. It's an investment that never changes one life.
Yeah.
It changes generations.
Yeah.
And that is nation building. That is transformative.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about overcoming the problems and challenges that we face today. That's it. And it's my own understanding that change does not happen overnight. It does not happen in a week.
Yeah.
You're in it for the long haul. It's an investment. It's decades. It's generational. So plan for it and be prepared for it.
This is your purpose. Do you think this was what you're meant to do in your life? I've always been. Do you think about it sometimes? Like,
I mean, I moved to India in 2012. I had an agent there and he's like, you must come to India. You'll be a Bollywood actress. And I was like, do I want to be a Bollywood actress? And I literally, I had Fuji. I packed my bags. I was staying with my friend, Miss India. So there are perks of being part of the beauty pageant world. I was staying with her in Mumbai. And I was learning Hindi. I was going for castings. I was doing shoots. And the idea was I wanted to break into Bollywood. But at some point, I think about 3 months in, I realized two things. One is I need to pack my bags and literally move here and commit to being here and to doing this if I'm serious about it. And number two, and then it was, okay, but what about Fuji School? Like, who's going to run that? And this was only a few years in. And the second thing was, well, how much do I actually want to be an actress? Right? And I've always, to answer your question, I don't like to say this is my purpose for being. If I reflect on it, I was always brought back to this. It was never something that I was going to let go for another. So call it purpose, call it I made sacrifices. I chose Fuji over other things.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the business aspect of running a social enterprise, not for profit. Did you treat Fuji how you would run a business? Well, you would have to, except that it's not for profit. It is for you're impacting lives, essentially. But was it like running a business?
Yeah.
Is it?
So in the beginning, no, because, we were in our early 20s and we started it with I had some fundraising money that I did, and it was, we just got it up and running, got chairs donated, books here and there, and we just did it, right?
Yeah.
So there wasn't the structure in terms of accounting, in terms of, transparency, accountability. You talk about hiring, you talk about jobs, you talk about making sure everyone's feeling fulfilled and appreciated, growth plans, strategy. None of that was, we had discussions about it. We had ideas of where we wanted it to go. but in terms of a very concrete plan, no. Plus, also we were wearing many hats. It was myself, it was Shikin, my one of my friends who started the school with me, and someone from the community. So we divided roles, but everyone was busy. Everyone had multiple jobs.
Sure.
So it was like a part-time volunteer
Sure.
type thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, about 7 years in, I think that's when
You started treating it like a business, like a
more
proper
so.
business.
Like we set it up. We eventually established we registered in a way that enabled us to be a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I think it was slowly realizing that we couldn't run that way. But also we were dealing with a very little amount of money.
Sure.
And
So how did you raise funds?
yes. So it's always been hard because of the nature of refugees in Malaysia that they aren't considered legal. So therefore you exist in a very gray area. People are unsure of whether they should give you,
Right.
how much they should give you. Is it legal? Will I get in trouble? And so
Right.
that gray cloud has always like sat above our heads in everything that we do. So
And still today?
to a degree, still today, but it's changed, it's improved
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
So we've operated in a way. I think if anything, we had a scarcity mindset. We operated with minimal resources. We were never able to have big dreams and go like, I want to build a school or I want to start a scholarship program and fund and basically pay for any child who wants to go to university. We couldn't have these big bombastic dreams because it was hard to just pay for the basics,
Right.
just to keep the school open. And that was, we could slowly see every time we said we need a better teacher or we need better resources or we need to give more facilities to the students, our cost went up. The cost went up. So you're constantly this game, right? But at the end of the day, if you want to really impact, if you really want to give the child the best, you need to improve your quality, right? So it was always this juggle, this balancing act that we had. And then fast forward in the past, say 7 years, it's, we tried it. We've obviously applied for grants. The way we speak to donors, I want you to give me your money because you believe in what we do. You need to come, you need to see what we do, you need to trust it. So it's really a very deep understanding. You need to know me, you need to like me, you need to like the work we're doing and believe in it. Because then you will give us the money and you won't breathe down our throats when we're doing what we need to do, right?
So how did you approach it? Like, what was this? Did you have a specific strategy? Like in a business, right?
Yes.
When you do branding and promotion, you have a specific strategy of how do I reach my demographics?
Yes.
And how, if I were to raise funds, I'd go, I'd either take a loan or I'd go for an investor or it's my own personal money. How did you approach partnerships, collaborators, as well as financiers?
Yeah.
Did you have to knock on their door? Did you have to cold call? What did you do?
So you split it into a few different categories. You've got your crowdfunding or your individual donors.
Sure.
So those are individuals who may not give you a lot, smaller amounts of money. You've got, and that's something you have to constantly cultivate, and you do that through often social media channels. We had corporate CSR, corporate funders, and so sending them letters, emails, sending them proposals. So constantly reaching out to people, introducing yourself. You may not be known. People may not even know you exist and what you do. So introducing yourself, inviting them to come and see your work, and then trying to basically sell yourself to them.
Yeah. But
In a way.
isn't the name Deborah Henry enough? Because I would think like, it's Deborah Henry.
To a degree, perhaps. To be very honest, it absolutely helped open doors. It absolutely got me more media attention, so more coverage. It absolutely got us partnerships and collaborations and sponsorships that possibly we would not have gotten otherwise. So did it help? Yes. Was that also an intention, using this the fame, I guess, to talk about this? Yes. Because ultimately, if people don't know, they can't help. So they need to be aware that you exist in the first place. So yes, it was something we used. But we had to, it was hard work. We had to apply for grants. Once you get a grant, you've got to manage the money to the very cent. And this takes effort and time. And when you're trying to, for me, I was wearing so many hats. I'm trying to market and promote the school. I'm also doing a bit of management. but then I'm also trying to fundraise. But I'm stressed because I can't fundraise for like a year in advance. I'm fundraising for next month. I'm fundraising for the next 2 months. So I realize that the mind can't do, it's very hard for you to do these big picture planning and strategy when you're struggling with the day to day. And if it's the same person doing it, it's even harder. So that was a big struggle for us. And to be very frank, in the 16 years we've been running, we've consistently increased our cost like over the years. So, where we started and where we are today, it's like a huge jump. It's at least like a times 15 monthly, revenue, like monthly cost increase.
Let's talk a little bit more about that in a business context, right? That's called scaling.
Yes.
If we were a profit-making center. How did you scale from a specific number? Did you have a target of we want to expand to this many students by this time? How did that transition happen? Did you have a goal? But did you have a lot of families and students coming in, knocking on your door, going, I want an education?
Yeah.
Is that how you came up with the numbers?
So we didn't really come up with numbers, but it was always needs based, right? So did we have this very clear sort of sentence we use, motto of saying a child is at the center of everything we do. So everything goes back to the best interest of the child. And you could see in terms of us growing programs and scaling, it was always what were the needs of the community and the child at that point.
Right.
We started off with primary, we grew downwards to kindergarten, we grew upwards to secondary, and then we moved. When they finish high school, they go, what's next? Where do I go now? And then we moved on to university and tertiary options, right? So we've constantly scaled based on the needs of the community. And that's how we've designed and developed the programs.
Right.
COVID was very hard for us. Like I said, we almost reached a point of like, we can't do this. It was the first time ever that I actually cut salaries by 20%, but we were committed to paying them back. So everyone who had a salary cut got repaid once the organization, I think a year and a half or two later, when we got back. Because we understood that these were people that needed the money. And if we could give it back, we would and we should, right? So that was one thing that we did. But then, and this is something I used to always talk to people about, and then it happened. I said, we need to find high net worth individuals or philanthropic organizations that once they give, they're going to create a domino or a spillover effect that other people will start giving. And that will create us a huge amount of stability and also sustainability for the organization. And that happened. It was just coming out. I know. It was just, and I was like, oh my God. And this was coming out of COVID. And it was, I still remember this. And this he's a funder, donor, but just such a amazing person. He just spends so much time with us.
Can you name this person, or does
his name's Stanley. And he just devotes time and sits there and listens. He gives you that and he listens. And so beyond the financial and all this other, and he opens doors for you as well, which is just incredible, right? And
I hope Stanley is listening to this, because what we want to do is say thank you to Stanley, but we also want to encourage other potential donors, other potential philanthropists that have the resources, not financially, but to open other doors. That's what we want.
Yeah, and it's incredible, but we can all do that. Like, you and I can do that for somebody else. It's realizing, like, when I was at the On the Rise summit, I met this girl and she's like, my friends made me come here because they say I have a business plan in my head that they want me to make happen, and they said you have to attend. And she looked a little bit nervous, she looked a little bit scared, anxious, but she was there. And I said, this is a great community. Reach out and use people, like demand their time, and they will help you. And this is a space that will help you. So anybody has the capacity to have that impact in someone else's life. It's not just a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, a philanthropist out there. But in our case, at the stage we were at, it was someone like Stanley. And I remember very, very clearly, he was at the school and he asked me, like, what's your dream? Or what do you want? Or something. And I was like, it was like, how do I answer this? And I'm trying to like think of a good, smart answer like in 5 seconds. And in a way, it's like I just came out of COVID, barely survived. Like things were shitty. Like I was like half depressed and on the borderline nervous breakdown. Like I was like, I don't have the emotional like capacity to like, what's my dream? Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't have one at the moment.
Like,
I don't know.
Can I come back to you?
Yeah.
But that was it. And so that was interesting. The change from a scarcity mindset as a nonprofit where you're always operating from minus to a abundance. Like, if I can have this whatever dream, what is that? And if it makes sense, of course it needs to make sense. It needs to be a viable dream. Someone can fund me. Someone can support me. Or not me, but someone can support Fuji and what we're doing. And that moment of, and since then it's been, what do you guys need? What do you need to grow? What is your plan? How do you want to grow? And then I can, with my team, it's this growth mindset that we have now, which is how do we grow our youth programs. So our scholarship this year, by the end of this year, we'll have 50 scholars going to university.
Wow.
Right? Imagine that. And what is that domino spillover effect that's going to have?
Yeah.
We have so many other youth programs. We've got, we're looking at a way of scaling some of the programs we run at Fuji School, right? So expanding impact beyond the 200 students at our school. So that's a pivotal change because we assume that, if someone gives you the more money, the better it is.
Yeah.
Nah, you get scared and you don't know what to do with it. And eventually, if you make a mistake, that money is gone.
Yeah.
So you also don't have the risk. You can't afford the risk to mess up because once they're gone and your credibility is gone, no one's going to come back. So a great opportunity, perhaps a great timing coming out of COVID. But also for us, now the burden or the opportunity sits with us to go, what do we do from here?
Let's talk a little bit more about the programs under the Fuji organization. So kindergarten, primary, and then high school and university programs as well, scholarship programs.
Yes.
So that's a lot that you've undertaken. Just take us through a little bit more. How many students have you got in kindy, primary, high school? We've talked about the scholarship programs. You've got 50 now ongoing, right? And obviously each year it's going to increase. Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. So the nature of refugees living in Malaysia is that they don't live in camps. They are what we call urban refugees. They live amongst society. KL, Selangor, Penang, Johor, other states as well. That makes it more challenging in the sense that it's very hard to know who they are and where they live. They also then live in clusters. And so the reason our school set up in Gombak is because initially, when in 2008, we were serving the needs of that community. You would like to be able to have more kids come in, but that involves transport, logistics, which can be difficult and are costly. And there are security concerns as well. So that's kind of just so that people understand what the whole ecosystem looks like. So there are many schools like Fuji that provide various forms of education, different in terms of quality and quantity as well, right? And so for us, we look at the education journey of a child, just like you, your kids, myself, growing up. We start at kindergarten, we go to primary school, secondary school. For us, we don't even think about it. It's just like a given. And then after secondary school, we finish. If we go to university, it's what do we want to do? We're future thinking about that. And then we apply, right? The degrees, the scholarships, whatever you apply. For the refugee child, that journey is very different. Sometimes you don't have access to kindergarten or quality kindergarten, or it's too far away from you. You go to primary school, you may finish standard 6, but then the nearest high school is like half an hour or 45 minutes away from you. On public transport, it's even longer. It's costly. They have full. They can't take in any more students. So what does a parent do? Often, okay, we wait. Let's see. Maybe in the meantime, get a job. Or if it's a girl, sometimes, you're already 15 years old. Maybe we should start looking at marrying you off. All of these realities kick in because you have real issues with income, right? You have a sense of you live on the poverty line. Culturally, well, if the girl's going to sit at home, we might as well marry her off. So the man, someone can take care of her. Boys start working. Once all of these happened, you're not going to get them back. It's very hard to get them back into education. So And then, of course, if you don't finish high school, you don't have a high school degree. Well, good luck. Like, you're not going to end up anywhere else in university. So that also it can limit your potential future earnings, right? So you're never going to end up with that job beyond a certain amount unless you're the entrepreneur that made it big, right? So everything then your ceiling just got that much lower. You're limited. So, and then say for those who do stay in high school, finish off, they're able to afford it, finish and graduate. Okay, I've got a degree. I want to be an accountant. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a teacher. You look around and they're like, great, there's no one. I guess I don't do anything. And they sit at home, try and get a job. So the whole system is broken. So what we try to do is create pathways, a smooth pathway, the connectivity. And we don't do it all. We're not educating all the thousands of kids in Malaysia, but at least in Fuji, we have that pathway. And a child becomes future thinking. They're thinking about what tomorrow is going to be and they're planning for it.
Yeah.
And we're saying, we'll support you. We're here. We're going to help you plan for it.
Yeah.
We're going to give you the opportunities. So let's do this.
Yeah.
Because no matter who you are, a child, an adult, anybody, rich, poor, refugee, non-refugee, whatever that may be, like a friend said this to me just last week. He asked me to stick my hand out and he dropped a pencil on my hand and it just landed and fell. And he said, what happened? I said, well, it fell. He goes, okay, that's opportunity. What do you need to do to like make that opportunity work? I said, I got to catch it. So I have to see it and I have to seize it. If I don't see it, firstly, recognize the opportunity and seize it, no one can make me do that. No matter what someone does, no matter what someone puts on the table, puts on my hand, if I'm not the one to do that, it's not going to happen. And so that is what, and that's profound, right? Like that really goes, I mean, we talk about it, we know it, we talk about it with the students, but to have this clear example, it's just so you get it immediately. And that's it. And the refugee child at the end of the day needs to step up and take that opportunity.
Sure.
And that's a mindset that you need to cultivate.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I want to touch on. Let's talk about the word refugee. I know what that means, but we don't really know what that means. I think we all hear about it. We talk about it. We watch it on social media, especially now with what's happening around the world, with the war that's going on. We see a lot of it. It's amplified right now. Yep. And a lot of us sometimes feel helpless. Yes, we share some things and we communicate it very, very, very well. However, I also feel sometimes like surely there's something else I can do besides sharing on social media and amplifying the importance of these issues. I want to be an active helper. I want you to kind of break it down a little bit more for us, what it means like to be a refugee, because they didn't just come here because, okay, let's just take a flight or let's just take a boat to another country. That's not the case. They come from war-stricken countries. There's danger. Their lives are threatened, and hence why they're here now. But sometimes we don't think about it, right? As human beings, because we don't feel what they feel, what the traumas that they've had to go through and are still enduring now. Can you just put it into context for those of us that don't really know what it's like? You have been working with them for years and years and years. Some of the students, I've been to Fuji School and I've, spent some time with your students, and they've told me stories that I just cannot. Can you share that, first of all? Secondly, what can we do instead of just being keyboard warriors? Warriors?
Both.
Yes, correct. Actively to help. Just tell us.
Well, I think we've been so desensitized. I mean, I stopped watching news in 2020 when COVID happened because I was starting my day with feeling depressed. And I just said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
We've been very desensitized with images, with horrific images. And it's also very dehumanizing what's going on. I think another real thing is that it's very hard to really imagine and feel it if you've not experienced it. And in Malaysia, I say this, we're a very blessed country. You know, we're not perfect. We've had challenges. We've had, say war. We've got, we had impacts of World War II and stuff in the past. But generations today, we have it good. We don't really see this kind of mad suffering that happens around the world. And I say this with, all respect to the social issues that we have in our country. What's been particular about the current war that's happening in Gaza is that we're seeing it in real life, where the images coming out are so real and so raw and so heart-wrenching that no human being can look at them without I don't know, I can't even look at it anymore, and that is confronting for all of us. And I think that it's shown us what it means to be a refugee. That is like those images, those emotions, the destruction is what it means to be a refugee in many contexts, not just in Palestine, in so many countries in the Arab world, so many countries in Africa, closer to home in the Rohingya community in Myanmar. That is it. Don't think that is not happening in other parts of the world just because you don't see it.
Yeah.
And I think that understanding and acceptance. And if we want to help, then help means help all.
Yes.
We need to check our own we call it selective activism, because we pick and choose. And it's hard to accept this, but we pick and choose what matters more than others. And that is just not the way we need to be. And I say as a country, it's yes, we share and yes, we talk about it, but it needs to be more than that. It needs to be actionable. And that is, we recently launched a campaign called Fuji Mythbusters. We actually want to bust there's so many myths and misconceptions in this country about what it means to be a refugee. Because I promise you, it's something I do not wish on my enemy, to live a life like that, to not know what tomorrow is. During COVID, a simple example, we couldn't see our friends and family for years. And we were like, oh, we can't. I feel so sad. I haven't seen my nephew, my cousin, my grandma. Yeah. Oh, she lives 10 kilometers in Subang and I cannot see her. Yeah. Oh, my poor mother, she's alone. Refugees don't see their families for decades. They not even don't see their family for decades. They're killed. They're bombed. They're slaughtered. They die on boats trying to find freedom. So what really upsets me is that this sense of criminalizing, vilifying people because they came here for safety. Very simple. You can get into the politics of it,
sure,
but that's it. And because of that, it's very simple. Our leadership needs to set the tone. There are many people, and I can see in the past 15 years doing this work, it is changing. More and more Malaysians are generous. They care. They want to do the work. They're committed. Right now, it's leadership, it's change, it's policy, it's will. We need to walk the talk. If you're going to say you want to help people, then you need to help them in a real way. It's a hard decision. We say it's an easy decision, but you got to do it. And so I think for me, people use your voice. And that's what we've been telling people. You use your voice not just when it impacts you, not just when it impacts your own kind. Use your voice to stand up for humanity, for other people. And that voice, that strength will change policy, will change law, will change how our leaders make decisions. But we Malaysians have to recognize the power of us. And that is the only way we can change. Because I can say here and say, donate to Fuji School, educate a child.
Yes.
I can say that and you can do that. And does it help? Yes, it does. It changes a life and every life counts. But it has to be today, as I sit here 16 years, it has to be more than that. And that comes with, even for us as an organization, the way we have these conversations now has changed. Because especially after what we've seen, things cannot remain the same. And if Malaysians who care think that things should just remain the same and you just give a few donations here and then I'm sorry. Then your tears, I don't know. They don't mean anything to me. So that I've become very
stoic.
I've become a lot more thing, and also for me as a person, if I wake up and cry every day, if I wake up and look at images and feel, I work with these people. You know, I have colleagues who are from Palestine. She wakes up every day and comes to work and has to, with her kids, and has to sit there and has to do her job, and we have to support her, and we're in the thick of it. And I mean, I don't know. I think my emotions I pack them away in another day. So that's it's what you have to do today and be strong for others, right? Before.
You're very brave.
So
you're very, 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 very brave. I think you're one of the bravest person I know.
Oh, thank you, Frankie.
I don't know how you do what you do. I don't. You need to give me some tips on how to recover emotions. What are your aspirations looking into the future for Fuji School? But not just Fuji School, but other advocacy work that you want to happen and for it to happen. What does that look like?
I think for me, and it is very personal. As a Malaysian, it's nation building, and when we talk about nation building, it's a country that works for everyone. We look at the needs of every single person, majority, minority, whoever you are, whatever you are, that your needs are met and that you have equal and fair access to everything, so that you can build a meaningful, dignified life for yourself. And I think for me as a Malaysian, for me as mixed, my dad's Malaysian, my mom's Irish. I want to see that. Malaysia is such a beautiful, diverse country where we have so much going for us. But that sense of untapped potential that lingers in this country because we're not reaching high enough. We don't want it bad enough, and we're not supporting all of our people get there, is something that I feel super strongly about. But it doesn't happen overnight. And it takes the newer generations. It's my generations. It's the generations that are coming now after me with a very different mindset, a very different understanding of our world, and the privileges they have and the tools that they have to make a difference. It's an opportunity unlike any other, the time we have right now. So it's one where we have a lot of potential and opportunity. So I choose to be positive about it. And at the end of the day, we can hate and make noise, but it doesn't serve the purpose as an individual. It makes my life worse for me, and it doesn't help anyone else around me. So you've got to choose to be the light, to be the love, and to be the hope. And I think if we learn anything from the people of Palestine, it's that.
You should be a global leader, in my opinion.
Thank you. Doing this is more than...
I have one last question. Well, I have many questions. I can sit here for hours talking to you, actually. And I kind of want people to understand there's so many different aspects to Deborah. I've seen those bits. And I actually wanted to have a crack of getting some of this crazy, really fun side of Deborah.
Reserved for when the cameras aren't around.
Correct. Well, that's for another session. But for now, it's a question that I always ask every woman, every individual, every entrepreneur is health. Something that I prioritize now more than ever. I mean, you are in a very, I feel, very emotional and taxing workspace. What do you do to sort of especially when you've had a really, really tough day at work, you're dealing with families and their lives and their emotions at the same time. I tend to I take it on
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and it gets to me. What do you do to sort of go, I feel what they feel, I have full empathy, but how do you then care for yourself so that you don't get too
No, of course,
sucked
you'll
in,
explode.
explode,
Yeah.
and you can't do what you do
You're
anymore.
not good for anyone else after
Correct.
that.
And so what do you do for self-care? Do you exercise?
Yeah.
Do you do breath work, meditation? What do you do?
So this has been my ongoing journey. I've always been very active since I was in school. That's something I think consistently done throughout life. And I realize I can define it now that actually that keeps me sane. It keeps me from probably ending up having a nervous breakdown and just not being able to get out of bed. So I have been spending in the past few years a lot more time on myself. And then this realization that everything we have, everything we need is within us. This idea that we are enough, but everything we have is within us. And how are we, but you've got to feed it. You've got to grow it. You've got to strengthen it, right? Nothing, it's not just there. So a lot of the work, two things. One is a lot of the work that happens inside of you. And that is and it's different things for different people. It's prayer, it's meditation, it's breath work. Breath is something that is so important, no matter who you are, how you breathe and how you regulate your breathing, especially in my work, right? Is so important. It's like magic in how it can transform your state of mind and being, right? So a lot of that stuff that you're constantly refining and strengthening inside of you, knowing when to release. So even my coach was telling me the other day, when you hold, and I'm a holder, I'm like, and it's there and you can feel it. You feel the heaviness, you feel it build up, and one fine day it's boom. So learning to release, how I do that. I work out almost 5 times a week. That's great for me. It sets my mind, it sets my day. It helps me release a lot of the pent up stuff. So really understanding what matters, what works for you, and trying out different things. So in a work, right? So that's one step, the stuff that you invest in yourself that helps build your strength of mind, consciousness, exercise, physical exercise really does work. So always doing that as well. And then knowing when you need that external support. A lot of times we're so focused on the external in today's world. I need to go here. I need to do this. I need to buy this. If I don't do that and if I don't eat this and drink, you know what I mean? It's too external because we've given up, we've kind of given up that power to everything around us. And when that doesn't work, where do you look, right? So knowing when you need to reach out for the external, right? Of course, it's the support from family and friends is incredible. It matters so much. Having a friend you can call to and just cry or just blah, and they don't judge. So what that looks like, knowing when you reach out for that, but always knowing that ultimately it's this that you have and what you put into it and how you strengthen it and build it is it's that for me is something that I think now in my late 30s and as I move on, like, as you know, with more, I guess with age, you can become wiser, so they say, that I can feel it. It's not just words, I really feel it. I feel the strength. I feel the resolve. I feel the conviction. And the more you do it, the more you experience it. So I feel like I'm living it. And that kind of, for me, I go external. It helps me find that balance. And it helps me always, my compass always brings it back to me. At the end of the day, I control me. Very little of the stuff that happens outside. So,
Debster,
thank you.
thank you so.
We could chat forever, but
I know. We're on time.
Yes.
Here, but thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Frankie.
your time, not just now, but in everything that you do and the work and the energy that you put out there. Because I know it's a lot. And I've worked alongside you, and I also understand and know you also use your own personal money to fund some of the stuff. So for those of you listening, you really are the real deal. You really are a champion for humanity. And I respect and admire you for what you do. I hope God blesses you and the people that you work with, and
Thank you.
and I hope our audience can support you in what you do, so it's not as difficult. Thank you. I feel like I need to give you a hug, but I know how you feel about hugs.
You always make me cry. You cry and then I cry.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Business on the Rise. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel.